Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode in which I'm going to go deep into the effect of screens in our kids. That's the title: Kids and Screens, Problems and Solutions. I'm going to talk about the problems. I'm going to do a short introduction: problems and solutions. So, if you think that this is a problem for you or for someone that you know, if you see that your kid is addicted to the screens or to the consoles, if you every time you try to take the phone, the cell phone, or any device out of your kids or your teen, and they do a tantrum, they have a really horrible reaction, I want you to know that you are not alone. This is something that is happening over and over, and these consoles, these screens in general, are creating a big problem in our kids' health. I'm going to dissect that and go deep enough so as you can see why we should be careful about the use that our kids do with technologies, the way that our kids use technology. And also, I'm going to propose you some solutions for this, because I know that this is a real problem. I know this is not just something random. It's something that many people are concerned about, and I also want to give you a little bit of guidance of what we can do. So I'm going to introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Ana María Oliva. I'm from Spain, from Barcelona. And my first training has been in engineering. I'm mechanical industrial engineer. I've been also studying and working a lot with many kinds of natural therapies. But my main background for the purpose of this lecture is about this PhD in biomedicine. I have a master in biomedical engineering, but I also have a PhD, and my thesis was about studying the effect of electric field on cells. I was working for several years in the nanobioengineering lab and in a microbiology lab, both in the Institute for Bioengineering in Catalonia, in Barcelona. So everything I'm going to share with you is not just the result of a mom that is concerned about my kids' health, but also is the result of a lot of science. And in this case, I like to introduce myself like a scientist that is also a mom and a human being, of course. So a human being that is a mom and a scientist, probably in the right order, and that is really concerned about what is happening now and wants to find solutions. And I know what I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about consoles or screens in general, I'm talking about this. This is just a few images that describe, I think, that pretty well what I want to talk about today. So here there was this manual talking about the risk of epilepsy. We are talking about violence. We are talking about disconnection, not only with the kids, because the kids are just our mirror, but also ourselves. We are talking about this and this kind of families, and you can think that this is not your family, but I know many families that are like this, and the tantrum that the kids have, the big emotional reaction that is the result of a big addiction, and the lack of control of the main emotions or urges that the kids have because of this. We are going to go very deep on that so as you can understand from a scientific perspective what is happening. I'm not going to talk about this, but I cannot not say this. This is very dangerous, and this is also very dangerous. We shouldn't do this. Okay, but let's go inside to first talk about the problems and then the solutions. Okay, so let's go for the problems. We have three main things to point out when we talk about the problems. The first thing is the content. The second thing is the container or the content of that content. And the third thing is the radiations. When I'm talking about the content, and I'm not going to talk so much about this because I want to go a little bit fast in places that I think are well known, we need to think if that content that the kids are consuming, because this is what they are doing when we say they are watching, they are consuming a content, if that content is really appropriate for the kids, for the age, and for also the ethic, the aesthetics, the safety, and if it corresponds to the behavioral models that we want, if it matches with our ethics, with our moral, with our values in our family. Okay, this is something we need to know. When we talk about the container or the continent, how this information is presented, we need to know that what they use is light, motions, sound, and sometimes a lot of glows. This is going to be very important when I talk about the dopamine and how these screens are hijacking the dopamine circuits. It is very important because it's not the same watching a cartoon that is clean, that the movement is slow, that watching other cartoons in which they have every 3 seconds they change absolutely the glow, the motion, the sound, the lights, and all this is absolutely altering the behavior of our kids. So this is something to take into account, and I'm going to explain you later why and how. Let's go to the radiations. Okay, before, I don't know if you have listened or seen, watched any of my presentations. I have hundreds, if not thousands of them. Many of them are in Spanish, but I have every time more and more in English too. When it was pandemia and many people were asking me, so if there is no contagion and there are no the viruses, what creates the disease, why do we get sick? I always answer with another question, that is, how many parts of you do you recognize? Because we are not just biochemistry, we are not just a physical body, we are much more than that. And unless we start realizing and recognizing other parts of ourselves, it's going to be very difficult that we really know how to take care of our health. So I normally describe 7 parts of ourselves. The physical, of course, we have a physical body that we can measure, that we can quantify how big it is, how much it weighs, etc., etc. We have a biochemistry, yes, that's true. And we also have an electromagnetic reality. I'm going to go a little bit deep on this. We also have energy that we can feel tired or not. We have emotions, a mind, and spirit. Okay, today is not the day to talk about why do we get sick, but I have another lecture that you can find in my channel that talks exactly about this and how to take care of each one of these layers of ourselves. Today, or in this section, I want to talk about this electromagnetic reality. Okay, we call electromagnetic field or radiation to a kind of energy. We represent this energy normally in these lines in which we have frequencies that are increasing. We know that there are at least 22 orders of magnitude, different frequencies that this same energy can have. We can have it a frequency that is very low or a frequency that is very high. The higher the frequency, the more energy it carries. And here you have different names that we have given to this same energy in different frequencies. We have extra low frequency. Then we have the radio frequency, included the microwaves. They are called this way because it's where most of the uses of the radio, the TV, and the communications in general are using this band. Then we have like a gap that is called the tera gap, is where are the terahertz. Now there are starting being a lot of technical applications of these waves, but they have a behavior that is a little bit different from the electronics and different from the rest, that we call it optics. We call optics, we call light to this same energy, electromagnetic field, when it has certain frequencies that are normally between the what we call infrared and ultraviolet. So we only see this little window that is a visible window, and we know the colors that they have from the red to the violet, and then we put other names, not very creatively, because we set infrared to everything that is under the red and ultraviolet to everything that is above the violet. And then we have the high energy rays or high energy radiations like the X-rays or the gamma rays. I want you to know that all this is the same energy. We put different names, but it's the same energy, okay? And this energy is not something, it's not just something that comes from outside that can be man-made, but it's also something that we as living beings create ourselves or have ourselves in our bodies. We know that, for example, with the brain, okay? Probably you've heard or you've seen many times this different ways that our brain works. We have here the brain waves. We can have our brain in a state of thinking, in an alert state. So here we have the beta waves, that is when we are thinking in a rational mind. But then we have alpha when we are a little bit drowsy, when we are a little bit like falling asleep or just relaxed. This is what I call the mind of a kid, because they are here most of the time, especially under 7. So here is when we are relaxed, and then we fall asleep, we have delta, and then theta, and then we have gamma, that is when it's like, I call them the waves of the ecstasy. But with this, what I want to say is that our brain works electrically. We know that. And the frequencies of our brain, somehow they are allowing certain processes that we can do with our life. I mean, if we have theta, or delta, even delta waves, that is the deep sleep, we cannot think rationally because our brain at that moment is not in that mode. Okay, so depending on the frequency, we have certain things that we can do and other things that we cannot do. Okay, I want to show you a little bit of science behind this. I'm the person that you will see that even when I try to explain these things as easy as I can, because I've been during many times, many years, lecturing, doing conferences, and spreading a science, normally and not so materialistic science, I always try to show you some papers, some research, some names, some like scientific background, not just so much to show you, oh, look how much she knows. No, it's because I know our brain needs to know, and many times we want to explain things to people and we don't know how to explain the things. So I also want to give you what I call intellectual ammunition. That is all these resources, so as you can continue doing your own research, and you can also tell people, look at this. This is not pseudoscience, this is pure science. So here, for example, you have a paper that says out loud that the DNA is a fractal antenna. That means that the DNA is extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. Okay, this is something anybody can see. This is not something we are invented. We are extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. You even can find things like this. Exposure to 50 hertz electromagnetic fields induces something, induces a process that we call a disease. Okay, in this case, they say the activation of the Epstein-Barr virus genome. Forget about the virus thing. Is just understanding, and this is very old. This is from 1997. It's a 25, more than 25, almost 30 years old paper that is saying with electromagnetic fields, you can activate certain genome sequences, certain genes or certain sequences, okay, genetic sequences. So this is very important. This is called electrogenetics, okay, and lately has been very, many people were concerned about that. So, but this is very old. And here another one. Scientists build the world's tiniest antenna, and it's made of what? It's not made of nanorobots, it's not made of nanotechnology, it's made of your own DNA. Okay, and I've been talking a lot about nano devices, nanotechnology, nanomedicine, because that's my field and it's also my passion. So if you have any question about that, just let me know, because little by little I'm going to be uploading other videos about these topics too. So the tiniest antenna, the most sensitive one, is our own biology. We are extremely sensitive, and we can harvest a lot of electricity and electromagnetic fields with our body. And now I'm going to share you the key. I was in an oncology conference, medical conference, and I was invited to talk about my vision about health, that is a less materialistic vision. And they were trying to find new treatments for cancer patients, and I was there not being a medical doctor, but having a big background in medical research, because this is biomedicine, is the part of the medicine that does research, not necessarily medical doctors. Many times are biologists and many engineers too. So I was telling them, you know what? The key is that you cannot consider that you are just matter. The key when you try to understand the effect of electromagnetic fields, it doesn't matter if it's for good or for bad, if it's for pollution or for therapy. You have to understand that the key is that you don't have a physical body in front of an antenna. What you have is an antenna in front of another antenna. And this is what you need to start analyzing. It's not so much trying to find if the voltage gated channels are affected. This is one thing, but this is a very materialistic perspective. I'm going to bring you to another perspective that is this one, that is the key to understand everything I'm going to say. Okay? In the same way that we have different physical structures, we can distinguish in our physical material body, we can distinguish different systems, and we have the muscles, and we have the skeleton, and we have the blood vessels, and the nervous system, and the digestive system, and all the systems. When we start studying our electromagnetic physiology, and this is what I've been devoted for more than 20 years, we realize that we have different electromagnetic structures. We not only have nerves, we have a lot of different things, let's say, like systems, that they create this electricity and electromagnetic fields in our body. I'm not going to go so deep on this. I have a whole course. I have a very short introduction to this bioenergy applied to health in which I explain this. So you can go to the University of Terrain and look for it, because it's a very short and very, I think, that understandable course that is going to give you the keys of everything you need to know about the bioenergy and health. But there is another thing that is the common sense. Okay, this is in Spanish because it was an image. It's like, yes, you can know a lot about physiology, or you can know just a little bit. But there is something that is the common sense. The common sense is that our magnetic field on the Earth is about half a Gauss, 0.5 in average Gauss. And we know that, for example, a pigeon that is traveling, or a butterfly, they can feel easily 0.5 milligauss. So it's 0.0005 Gauss. Okay, if we have, let's put it in 500 milligauss. So this is, look at this, this is 1,000 to values that are 1,000 smaller than the magnetic field. Animals, including us, can feel it. But now you have the ICNIRP that is putting a limit that is 1,000, 1 million at least. I never calculate that mentally, but it's like 1 million times stronger than what you can feel. Okay, so what happens when someone is yelling at you at 1 million times louder than what you can hear? Do you think this is common sense? Do you think that putting a limit that is 1 million bigger than what you can hear makes any sense at all? So this is what we have. This is not just knowing data about science. This is like common sense. Okay, I'm saying 1 million and probably I'm doing wrong, but because this is just half and this is 1,000. But you make the math. It doesn't matter. It's going to be 2,000 times. Doesn't matter. Even if it was just 10 times bigger, doesn't make any sense. Okay. There are many doctors and many scientists that are saying, be careful, because this could be maybe, as we always say in science, but isn't it? We never say it is. We always say maybe. The most significant form of pollution that human activity has produced in this century. All the more dangerous, probably, and the more dangerous because it's invisible and insensible. And this is very important, because if you eat something that is in a bad shape and it's going to damage you, your body reacts immediately. You eat mayo that is expired, and your body is going to have either a diarrhea or vomiting. You're going to feel that you ate something was not good. But when you go to electromagnetic fields, you don't feel it. We are not sensitive enough, most of us, to perceive that you are being polluted because of the electromagnetic field. And this is a big problem, because we cannot We don't think in protecting ourselves against something that we don't perceive. Okay. And there are many other things. I'm not going to go deep on this, but this also exists. Okay, so for those of you that resonate with these ideas, me too. For those of you that don't resonate, no worries. Let's continue. So, if when I tried to explain what are the effects of the electromagnetic fields on our biology, I try to explain it as easy as I can, and I distinguish four kind of effects, and I put these names. There are ones that are recognized, other ones that are unheard, other ones that are hidden directly, and other ones that are misunderstood. So let's go for each one of these. The recognized one, the only one that our governments and all these organizations that give the guidelines so as the governments rule the law, the only one that they recognize is the heating. Okay, radio frequency creates heat. We know that. We touch our cell phone and it's warm. Okay, the same, more or less the same way that if you touch a light bulb, you are going to feel it warm. It's a product of electricity, and in this case, we know that microwaves can heat. That's why we have, hopefully you don't, but some people have ovens that are microwave based. So the only thing that is recognized in the law, in the legislations, in the guidelines is the heating. That is measured, I'm going to go to this now, in adults during 6 minutes and 5 centimeters away from the head. This is a big problem. It's called SAR, specific absorption rate. When I teach this in Spanish, I make like a playing with the words because SAR is pretty similar to ser. So I say to be or not to be, ser or no ser, SAR or no SAR. I cannot do this joke in English, so I just let it like that. SAR or not SAR, that's the question. Okay. What is the SAR, the specific absorption rate? How do we measure it? Well, when we want to measure, when science does experiments about the effect of electromagnetic fields, it can do it in different ways. We can do like phantoms, that is this that you are seeing here. We can do simulation, we can do animal models, or we can do epidemiology. But most of the time, everything is based on phantoms or simulations. What is a phantom? A phantom is something that I use instead of a human being to study something. So believe it or not, to simulate your brain, and hopefully you are very proud of your brain, as I am. So what they do to simulate that amazing organ that allows everything to happen, including consciousness somehow, is just this, like a little bathtub full of warm, salty water. Yes, they consider our brain just like a balloon full of warm, salty water. And what they do is this. They have here the phantom. This is the little bathtub or the balloon full of water. They have a sensor that is measuring the temperature. And then they put the phone 5 centimeters far from this container during 6 minutes, and just one. That has not changed in more than 20 years. So probably they are still using the GSM. Nothing to do with the 4G LTE or with the 5G. Okay, so yes, this is how they say that it's safe to use your cell phone, because of measuring the increment in temperature with a sensor in a balloon that is full of salty, warm water. So if this doesn't offend you, I don't know what is going to do it. Because for me, this is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that any scientist think that this makes any sense at all. Because they are doing it during 6 minutes, just measuring the increase of temperature in healthy adult males that in ideal laboratory conditions, and just at 5 centimeters, 5 centimeters is like this distance from your head. And then they tell you that that's safe for your kid, or that is safe for a pregnant woman, or that is safe for environment in which you don't only have one cell phone, you have many devices probably tens of devices that, because you have the Bluetooth here, you have the speaker with the Bluetooth, and you have this that is wireless, and the other thing that is wireless, and you have the router, and you have a lot of things at the same time that are increasing the value of the radiations. But this is how the guidelines are, or this is in what the guidelines are based on, and it hasn't changed over the last decades. Okay. So you can understand that this one that is the only recognized is absolutely insufficient and not right to do any guideline. Okay. Then there are the hidden ones, the ones that nobody talks about. Okay. This is not so much about direct, let's say, health in terms of ourselves, but nobody's talking about the cost in energy that it has having these huge servers to use the AI, for example. Nobody talks about that. Everybody tells you that you need to reduce the use of your electricity because of the climate change. But nobody's telling you that the increasing technocracy, in fact, that we have is increasing so much the energy consumption that the big servers, they have to put them directly in the North Pole or in places where there is very cold and inside the water, because otherwise the amount of water it needs to cool down the servers for the AI is amazing. Nobody talks about the effect on the atmosphere in the migrations in the stars, not in the stars themselves, but in the way that we see the stars. Astronomers are complaining about this, and also in the rhythms, because the atmosphere also has its own electromagnetic native radiation. We call it the Schumann resonance. Okay, and the fact of putting satellites out there that are radiating in a different frequency is changing this electromagnetic field that is part of the life on this planet. Nobody talks about the effect on flora and fauna. Nobody talks about the bees dying and the birds getting lost, and nobody talks about that. And nobody talks about the cybersecurity. If it's not that we see in the news that there was a crack and that the hackers suddenly sold in the dark web all this amount of data, in which probably your social security name is also there. Okay. I was talking about the misunderstoods, telling you, okay, there are many effects that are published, but they are understanding them from my perspective, a little bit like a wrong perspective, because they are just considering the biological part. But we are going to see a little bit these ones, okay? Remember that the key was that we are the tiniest, not the tiniest, but the most sensitive antenna human can have. That's our own biology. Okay, so we know that, let's go to this unheard. That is what we know, but we are not listening to what is published, but people just pretend they are deaf with this, are physiological. They have effects on the nervous system, specifically neuropsychological and psychiatric effects on both the nerves and the brain. It has effects on the endocrine system, therefore affecting our ability to adapt to everything that happens outside and inside us. You know that the hormones are the queens of adaptation. Alteration in the intracellular calcium rate, meaning a dysfunction at the cellular level in all the processes connected to calcium, that there are many of them. There are effects on the heart and the cardiovascular system, including bradycardia, hypertension, systolic murmurs, arrhythmia, and general changes in the heartbeat and the entire cardiovascular system, which can lead to many other problems. Effects on oxidative stress, increased oxidative stress and free radical damage, which are closely linked to all types of chronic diseases. Damage in the DNA, which is the same that talking about mutations and cancer. Effects on induced cell death connected to neurodegenerative diseases. Infertility, both due to a decrease in hormone levels and a decrease in sperm count, an increase of miscarriages and decrease in libido. There are at least 15 mechanisms detected and described in the literature that link exposure to electromagnetic radiations with dementia, Alzheimer's, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and autism. I can talk for hours about this because they are effects in absolutely all systems and processes in our body. There is no threshold that you say, oh, this is, if I'm below this, I'm safe. No, there is no threshold, and they are cumulative. So they are building up every time we are using devices. It's not only physiological. We have a lot of literature. There are thousands of publications in which they explain all the paths, the metabolic paths, and all the effects that it has in all the systems in our body. But it also has a strong psycho-emotional effect. I have here put just a few of them, like the virtualization of relationships, the fear of missing out. This is a syndrome that has been also very well described in literature, like the digital dementia, and the addiction, that I'm going to go deeper on that one. What is the FOMO, the fear of missing out? It's a syndrome that is similar to like a panic attack or an anxiety attack. It creates insecurity, these catastrophic thoughts about loss, constant fear of being devalued. This is the fear of missing out, the fear of not being all the time connected. Creates unhappiness and intense anguish, sleep disorders, constantly checking social networks, need of constant approval, palpitations, excessive sweating, dizziness, and vomiting. It can create all these symptoms and is considered a disease, a syndrome. The same that the digital dementia that creates a lot of things, like, for example, and this is something that probably you have observed in your own self, that is the reduction of the search capacity. Especially now that you just Google something, and instead of having all the results, you have an AI telling you the summary or the main important things that you don't even need to read. So every time we look less, we search less, and we do it worse. Lack of critical capacity to those who respond to us from search engines. This is another important thing. It's like we don't think, we just believe what those search engines or that AI is telling us. We just believe it. We are losing the critical capacity to see if what they are selling. I don't know if the translation is good in this, but basically it's like we don't think, we are not reading something from a critical point in which, okay, this is an information and it's me who has to know if that is true or not. For example, we are losing orientation ability. That's obvious. I'm so grateful for the GPS and the Google Maps, but I'm absolutely in this moment incapable of going anywhere if it's not a very place that I go very often, to find any road, because I don't know how to do that. I've lost this orientation ability. There is an encouragement of this cut and paste culture instead of the written rights, especially in schools and colleges. So this is something we need to check. Another thing that is really, really painful is that we are losing the ability to talk to someone face to face. We prefer to send a text with an emoji, and a text that can be edited, and then we can even delete it. Oh, sorry, it was a mistake. And every time it's more difficult for people to talk face to face. And this is a big problem. Okay. It has been demonstrated that using a computer in the classroom not only does not improve performance, but also produce other harmful effects. I'm going to talk deeper about this. And myths about future proofing, or that we need to prepare the kids for the future, and digital natives and all these digital capacities and the multitasking skills. Well, probably you think that that's a good thing, but in fact it's not. Okay. Here you have, for example, this is from the digital dementia book. I'm sorry that is in Spanish, but you can see over the years, this is when the kids, the infants, and then the teenagers, 20 to 50, old people and older people, and this is how the brain is being maturing, is getting mature, because you need to know that when you are born, your heart is absolutely perfect, that is as it is. It's totally developed, but your brain takes 21 years to be fully developed. So this is what we are seeing here. You supposedly you are developing with, for example, speaking two languages or understanding the things with your hands, doing things with your hands, music, sport, theater, the bonds that we create, family, feeling that we are doing something that has a purpose. All this is developing our brain, but the TV, DVD is creating problems in the language development, is creating attention problems. The consoles are creating problems at the school. The games, the video games are creating problems and not allowing the brain to fully develop. This is just a graph that represents some of the things I'm going to talk later. So let's go a little bit deeper into the kids because the rest of the things is for all of us the same. So we know that we become masters in what we practice. It is stated that we need about 20 hours to start like a new hobby, a new thing, to start understanding what is it about. It takes us like about 20 hours to start learning something. But to become a master, we need thousands of hours. And we become masters in what we practice. If you are always criticizing, you become a master in the critic. If you are all the time analyzing data, trying to find what is wrong in those numbers because you're an accountant, so you become an expert in finding mistakes or in finding the when you put something, you hang something in the wall, a picture, and it's a little bit like not straight, you detect that very easily because you become a master in what you practice. So when the kids are hours and hours, and the average is that they spend 4 hours a day with these that I call screens, these consoles, or this entertainment, consuming entertainment, in what they become masters. They become masters in being distracted, exhausted, and isolated. This is a pity, but this is the reality. This is what science is showing us and what we observe in our environment. Okay, let's analyze what is happening here. So screens are hijacking the attention. Why? We need to understand how the brain works. The brain doesn't analyze everything that is happening all the time. The brain works predicting what is going to happen. So now I'm in front of a screen. I have a window in front of me in which I'm seeing a patio, and I expect, and my brain knows what is outside and what is around me, and is not paying attention to the details. What is paying attention is if suddenly a cat jumps into my terrace, then and my brain is going to tell me, hey, there is something that it was not in the prediction that I made. But otherwise, it's like there is a prediction, and if the things fit more or less, there are some things that you expect. I expect a fly, I expect a bird, I expect even the sound of the birds. I don't know if you hear them or not, but they are singing like crazy. So I expect that. My brain doesn't put the attention there. Okay, but every time that things are changing, then the brain says, oh, this doesn't fit in my prediction, so I put the attention there. And then when you have a cartoon or you have this Cocomelon thing in which every 3 seconds, they change the frame, they put the movement, they put the lights, they change the colors, your brain is all the time like, oh, there is a change, oh, there is a change. And this creates a lot of stress. Okay, too many changes unpredicted, they create a lot of stress and makes that we get trapped into the distractions. Why? Because all these changes are trapping, are hijacking our attention. And if you're a curious person, as most of us are, you get even more trapped. Your attention gets even more trapped. That's why you go into, I don't know, TikTok. All the social media do that on purpose. They know how to trap your attention, how to hijack your attention. And what happens when your brain starts detecting so many changes and putting the attention in each one of those changes, that it comes a moment that the brain doesn't know if that is important or not. And then you have this decision fatigue that we call. And it's like, there are so many things at the same time that I don't know what to do with that. Okay, you cannot distinguish what is important and what is not. It's like someone gives you a paper and everything is highlighted with color, and okay, you normally highlight one word or one sentence in the middle of a page, but if you highlight everything, it's like, okay, so everything is important or nothing is important, because I cannot distinguish that. Okay, and then it happens another thing that I'm going to talk further, that is that this prefrontal cortex is not activated, and I'm going to explain you why in a moment. Okay, what does this prefrontal cortex, that by the way is not fully developed until you are 21? So I'm talking about kids, I'm talking about teens, and I'm talking about young people. Okay, what is this part of your brain doing when it can develop? Is the one that is in charge of controlling the urges and controlling the impulses and taking action. Okay, is the one that thinks rationally, the one that helps us to do things, to make decisions, to control what we are doing. Somehow you can consider that this cortex here is part of what makes us human, because it's what makes us that in front of something that is happening, I don't just react. I take a little bit of time to do what is the right action, not the reaction. Okay, so this frontal cortex, this neocortex, what it's doing is, okay, let us choose, not just being driven by our impulses. So if we can't control our attention, if we cannot think, we lose control over what we are doing. Okay, we are not making decisions, we are just reacting without control. We go into a non-rational mind. That's why kids have those tantrums, and you cannot explain them. If it's a little kid, you are not going to try to explain them anyways. But even if it's a teen, you cannot explain them this is not good for you, because they are not in the rational mind, not at that moment. You have to wait until there is a better moment, because when they are there and the attention is totally hijacked, the rational mind is not working. They are not going to, they cannot activate that rational thought. Okay, you go into the decision fatigue. I was telling you, you cannot distinguish what is important and what is not. So you cannot tell them, no, now it's time to go to shower. They cannot distinguish that there is a train going to hit them, because their attention has been hijacked, and they have this decision fatigue that creates many times either a tantrum or a paralysis. And you can no longer maintain a thought because you have 1,000 stimuli that are continuously hitting your brain. What is if you cannot think but yourself? So then what you do, you just repeat as a parrot without having understood what they are saying to you. And I say that instead of you thinking, you are thought. I don't know if it makes any sense in English. Okay, but it's like, you see these people that they are just repeating like parrots everything that they watch in the news. Yes. Don't ask them to think. The purpose of the TV is that you don't think, is that you just repeat as a parrot what they say. That's why they repeat that over and over, and they do that in a certain way that has been psychologically tested, that it creates what they want. And they create the reaction they want, and is that everybody that dares to think that that's wrong, and the rest of the people that don't think, the sheeple, are going to just go against them, because no, you are wrong, and you cannot make them think. That's impossible, because they are not in the rational mind. They are not using the rational mind. It looks like a little kid looks like is using the rational mind, because it has certain ability to make connections, but this is not the use of the human adult rational mind. Okay. So if the circuitry of thinking for yourself, of being in control of your life is weakened due to the tiredness, to the fatigue, what does it happen? The brain has to be sure that you're going to survive. So if this part is not working, it's going to give the control to another part that is much more primitive, another part of you, so as you can survive. Okay, so this is the typical tantrum that the kid has when you try to take the tablet out. I said, no, you cannot watch them more. I said, they try to explain. You cannot explain them anything. Well, first of all, this kid is too little to understand a lot of logical or rational thought. But anyways, even if it's a 20 years old person, they are not in the rational way of using the mind. Do you remember I was putting you the brain waves? Because the rational mind requires the use of the brain. So if your brain is not in that brainwave, you cannot use your rational mind. And then it's going to be like an automatic pilot that your body is going to start reacting and not acting consciously as a human being. You are going to react just in a survival way. So we have, it also hijacks the memory, and we have two kinds of memory. We have the short-term memory that is limited. It gets saturated. If you go to a party and suddenly they introduce you to 20 people, it's not very common that you can remember all 20 names, but if they introduce you one by one and you start doing other kind of connections, then there is more chance that you remember, because the short-term memory collapses very easily when we have many data. Okay, then we have the long-term memory, but the long-term memory is based on connections. It's not a memory that remembers the things just because of the memory. It remembers because it can make connections with prior knowledge. But if I cannot think by myself, I cannot create knowledge and I cannot connect data, so no knowledge becomes meaningful. That means I cannot create thoughts and I cannot remember the things. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. There is something that for me is even more painful, and is to see how it hijacks our willpower. Okay, and let's be honest. How many of us we say, yes, it's going to be just 5 minutes. I want to see the news. And half an hour later, you check and say, I'm still here. It was time to go to bed and I'm still here. Okay, it's not only the kids, but in the kids it's even worse because they never develop that will. Okay, screens are designed with complete scientific knowledge to generate a dopamine rush. Okay, an immediate pleasure is a Skinner box, definitely. Okay, so this dopamine rush is hijacking our reward system. Okay, Marian Rojas Estape is a psychiatrist, a Spanish psychiatrist that I admire a lot. She's really, really good, and she's been talking a lot about these screens and the effect that they have on the kids. Okay, I'm going to go later to the dopamine circuits and all this, but let's continue with what is hijacking. It's hijacking our willpower, yes, it's hijacking our creativity. And I ask you now, what makes us human? What makes us human? What does it mean to be a human being? Isn't that we can think rationally? Yes. That we can act instead of reacting? Yes. That we feel? Yes. That we can create? Yes. So, if we cannot create, are we stopping being human? What is the effect that it has in our self, understanding self as big as you can? If you can put it in capital letters, even better. So I was talking about the dopamine and this hijacking of these rewarding circuits. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that has many functions, including creating pleasure. We call it the hormone of pleasure, isn't it? Especially anticipatory pleasure, when you are enjoying of just thinking that you are going to go to those hot springs and have fun. Okay, it's one of the main things that is fostered with motivations. Okay, dopamine makes that we are motivated to do things, that we want to do things. It also coordinates movements, it facilitates decision making, it promotes learning, and is crucial in memory. So look at how many important things this hormone is doing. It's what makes that we want to do things, that we can do the things, that we remember what we wanted to think, and that we enjoy doing that. So the screens are designed to create addiction. I don't know if this word is going to make the algorithm do something wrong with the video, so probably I'm just going to talk about something that starts with coca and ends with in. That is written here in the slide. Okay. This is the comparison. This is not like, oh, it's like smoking or just taking sugar or no, 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 no. It's a big one. Okay. The thing that is doing the dopamine is increasing the production of dopamine. The screens is increasing the production of dopamine and inhibiting its elimination. So it builds up and builds and builds and builds. That's why it creates the tolerance effect. Okay. So the more it is repeated, the more we enjoy with the screens, the system is hijacked, the more there are two parts in your brain that communicate. One of them is connected with what I like and the other what I want. Okay. So then I start wanting what I like and being motivated only by things that give me an immediate pleasure and not with all those other things that they need your willpower. Okay, now you see why it hijacks your willpower, because it's making that you connect. I want what creates pleasure. I just want this. I don't want patience. I don't want delays. I don't want to wait. I don't want what is uncomfortable. I don't want the uncertainty. I don't want the discomfort. I don't want anything. I just want what gives me pleasure. This is an addiction. Okay. And it creates also this tolerance effect that every time we need more and more and more to get the same dose of pleasure. And there are certain things that I hate. This kind of spells. When the MIT said, we need to prepare for addictive intelligence. Obviously, it's talking about the artificial intelligence. It's not talking about us. It's talking about screens and devices. Okay. And I don't like this. I consider this a spell when they tell you that you cannot choose. This is going to be it. And you need to get used to it, because no matter what, this is going to happen. And I always say, no, this is not true. You can choose. And I'm here also to tell you, you can choose. Don't get used to something you don't want. They know that this is going to be more and more and more addictive. And let's be honest, what is your experience with ChatGPT? Or any other one, I don't care, Gemini or whatever you're using, that every time you use it more and more and more, to the point that you don't think by yourself. This happens to many people. I'm not saying that it's happening to you, but it's happening, and observing that in many people. Then we have other things. For example, the screens, you know that they have an emission that in blue light. And what happens with the blue light? That it affects what we call the circadian rhythms. What is that? That we have two main hormones in our body that they make that we are awake when it's the day and we are sleeping when we sleep at night. Okay, so we have our natural coffee, that is the cortisol. Cortisol levels at night are low, theoretically, unless we are super stressed. And in the morning, when the sun rises, they get high. So as we have the energy to do what we have to do. And the melatonin is exactly the opposite. The melatonin starts rising when the sun goes down. There is darkness. Our pineal gland starts secreting the melatonin. And it has to be sustained over the night so as we can continue sleeping. And when it's getting the sunrise, then the melatonin goes down and the cortisol goes up. So the screens damage this. The blue damage the melatonin secretion. And that's why many people don't sleep well, because they can fall asleep, they're super tired, but then at 4 a.m. they wake up because they cannot sustain this curve of melatonin. Okay, so they create a lot of problems. There are some glasses that can somehow shield that color, and they help. Definitely they help, especially because it's not only the screens, it's also the LED bulbs and all these other artificial lights that are damaging a lot our system and our eyes a lot. We have a big problem as a society because screens have become the favorite anxiolytic, and not only for adults but also for kids. You have a problem, you just put your phone or the tablet, or you just get distracted. You are tired, you put the screen. You don't know what to do because you are super upset, you start just checking the screen. And we don't learn how to manage our own emotions and how to take care of our own emotions and mental states. And this is a big problem. Okay. This is a quote from Marian Rojas, this psychiatrist that I was telling you. We don't realize that children from an early age are being exposed to this entire digital world without restrictions. And it has a great potential to profoundly alter their minds, their information processing, and their ability to manage frustrations and emotions. This is so 100% because every human being from childhood adolescence looks for escape routes to manage their ups and downs, their frustrations, emptiness, and a high percentage of the population goes to social media networks, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tinder, whatever, looking for that peak of dopamine that is activated upon contact with it. We are in the era of the attention crisis, maximum dispersion. We begin with multitasking, continue with feeling that we are both in and out of our reality, and end up in an identity crisis where we don't know who we are or where are we going. A world with people unable to control their attention without willpower and addicted to instant gratification can alter the future of humanity. Let us not forget that the screen distances us from reality, from nature, from wonder, from love, and from true friendship. We must return to paying attention to what is truly worthwhile. I think that this last sentence, a world with people unable to control their attention without willpower and addicted to instant gratification, can alter the future of humanity. This is it. This is really powerful, and this is what is happening. And we are just not seeing how big the problem is. We are not wanting to see the elephant in the room, basically because we don't know what to do with it. And this is a problem. Many families approach me saying, I don't know what to do. I prefer to just not saying anything, and I'm so tired of everything. I'm so tired myself that I just give them the tablet so as they shut up, and we are not like putting the right dimension to the problem that we are having. Here I wanted to put you the sound of the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to do that a little bit improvised, but let's see if I can do it. I don't work with the Wi-Fi in my computer. I have the Ethernet. That is something I recommend you to do too. But let's see if I can put, this is an antenna that can measure the electromagnetic field in the radio frequency. And let's turn it on and put it to put. So I don't know if you can hear that. And if I put the cell phone, it goes out of the range. Do you hear it? I imagine that yes, you do. Okay, so this is how it sounds. This is what you don't hear, but your cells do. Your brain does, and your whole body is listening all the time. This okay, and this is a big problem for our health. I wanted to show you the information in a different way. I've been working with a technology that is called BioWell for almost 20 years now, a little bit more even, in which we can see the electromagnetic field. So what you see here is the same person, in this case is me. It's a silhouette, this is the same for everybody, and you have this electromagnetic field that is the protection and the nourishment of our cells. And the colors are artificial. Here we just see the intensity. We want that is attached to the silhouette, the light blue, the solid blue, and then that we have the rest of the colors. And the more solid it is, the better. When it's broken, it means that there is less energy available. So this is the effect of working 1 hour with a computer. With a computer that's not even connected to the Wi-Fi, that is working with cable, with Ethernet. And I was the kind of person that was thinking, yeah, but I love so much what I do. That's my passion. I enjoy my work, my job. And if you vibrate in love, nothing happens. Well, you vibrate in love, you love your job, you're doing awesome things that you enjoy, but your energy field is suffering because there is a lot of external interferences that are messing with your own health. This is a kid before and after playing 10 minutes with a PlayStation. 10 minutes. And look at this. Look at how his energy field is getting empty. So this is what protects us and nourishes our cells. These are the resources we have to face our challenges. So what do you see here? The damage of 10 minutes playing at the PlayStation. Okay. The same with a cell phone call. Just the call, the ringing, not even a conversation. If then is the bank telling you something or someone giving you bad news, you have to add on top of that. But just the signal, the ring signal, is creating this damage in you. Everybody all the time? No, but there are patterns that I have observed over 20 years. Okay. So we see that this technology is kidnapping our attention, the memory, the own thought, the willpower, the dreams, the sleep, better than the dream, the sleep, the peace, the creativity, state of presence, interpersonal relationships, health, bonds, security, and so on and so on. I want you to put in the right dimension the problem that we have as a society. It's not only the problem you can have with your kids or you have seen or with your grandkids, because many people they have problems with the grandchildren because the parents are overwhelmed. And when the kids come home, they just want to continue doing what they do at their own home. And there are no excuses because we are the role model for our kids. We are the example they have. We are responsible of taking care of them. We are the main educators, are not the schools, are the parents. And there are no excuses. The children shouldn't be exposed to technologies. Now we are going to talk a little bit more about how to do that. But especially babies, no way. No way giving a baby a cell phone so as it doesn't cry at the car or at a restaurant. No way. You are damaging irreversibly his or her brain. And it's your responsibility. Okay. Under 3, 0 screens. 0. And I would say under 7, but then people tell me that that's impossible. They are not necessary and they are harmful. Okay. So I hope this second part, even when it's been long and a little bit intense, helps you to put the right dimension to the problem we have. And why am I am so strong saying no screens. You want to have healthy kids. You cannot let them use consoles. You cannot let them consume technology. Okay? Because of all the reasons that I've said. But let's go a little bit to what can we do. Okay? So many people ask me, okay, so how do I do to reduce the screens? Yeah, not even to stop the screens, but to reduce the screens. And I always say this is not about how I reduce the screens at home or my kids using, consuming technology at home. It is how can we promote a full development of the kids, of the children. Okay, how can we protect the treasure that is the childhood? That's the right question. Okay, because just focusing in one single thing, it doesn't make any difference. It's about how can we protect our kids, how can we give them the right education, how can we promote that they fully develop all their abilities and their skills. So for us, there are three fundamental pillars, and that means you have to have a plan. This is not like, okay, I have heard Ana Maria talking about this, and from now on, there are going to be no screens. This is not going to work, neither for you, for me, or for anyone. You have to have a plan. And this plan is based on three main pillars: rhythm, clarity, and consistency. Okay, what does it mean, the rhythm? Well, rhythm is the foundation of life. Our life is full of rhythms, from the day and the night, the breathing in, the breathing out, the systole, the diastole. Our heart, our organs work with rhythms. Okay, so rhythm is the foundation of life. And there are two main rhythms: one is expansion and the other is contraction. Okay, so we need to set up a schedule with our kids that allow them to have moments of expansion that can be, for example, going to the park, playing with a ball, playing basketball, riding a bike, doing things outside, doing physical activity or games that are outside, and things that allow them to do some contraction. That can be reading, can be just drawing, can be things that are more quiet. Okay, and having this consistency in the rhythm allows them to be able to manage these changes. But our society is based on the after school program. So the kids go to school a lot of hours, and then they go to the after school programs that many times is ballet or any kind of sports or music, and they're all the time just outside. So these kids have an imbalance and they don't know how to be at home, and they need to learn how to just be quiet. You can put something, you can establish schedules, but it has to be very clear. Okay, not very rigid. It has to be strong but never rigid, and it need to be compensation of things. So for example, you can say, okay, so after lunch, if it's a moment that you're at home, let's do something that is like a contraction. Let's read a little bit, or let's do something that doesn't require so much physical activity, but you are the one that has to guide them on this. And it has to be very clear, and I recommend you to write it down and put it in the fridge or wherever you see that, the schedule and the routines, what you expect them to do, especially the younger they are, but also with the teens is the same. You can watch the tablet this day at this hour for this long, and that's it. And the rest you'll figure out what you do to entertain yourself, because I'm not your entertainer. Okay, I'm your mom or your dad, but I'm in this case your mom, but I'm not the one that is in charge of entertaining you. Okay, so finding this rhythm is very, very important. The second is the clarity. Clarity first with ourselves. That's what I'm doing this. So as you have clarity in what you want and what you don't want your kids to be, and what you don't want your kids to be damaged, okay, then everybody in the family has to be very clear, especially the adults. We need to agree with that, because if I say my kids, there is no tablet, and then it comes that and puts them the tablet, then we have a problem. That is an inconsistency. Okay, so you first clarify yourself what is important, what is not, and how you can do it. Then you talk to the adults in the family, and then you talk to the kids. Okay, and it has to be consistent. You have to stick to that decision. No negotiation, no exception, and especially don't change the rules because you are tired. That this is the main problem we have. And I'm the first one in realizing I'm saying this by experience. My kids know perfectly how to push me to my limits until it comes a moment I say, yes, do whatever the hell you want. Okay? Don't do that. Don't change your decision. Just get there. It's a little bit like um, like the traffic police, that comes to you, good morning, you realize that you didn't stop when it was necessary, whatever is the sign that you didn't follow. Yeah. Is that it doesn't make any sense, that sign, because it's in a place that nobody comes? That's not the moment to argue about if this is right or not. This is what it is. Okay? In another moment, we can discuss if this is the best or it's not. But in this moment, the rule is the rule. You have to follow it. Okay? For me, sometimes it's very difficult to not being rigid and getting stick to the decision. Okay? But we need to also being able to adjust. It can be a day that the kids have been riding the bikes and they are so exhausted that you say, okay, today is not the day to watch anything, but let's watch a movie. Okay, we need to be able to adjust slightly to not being stiff or rigid, but don't change the rule just because you are tired. And you have to know that tantrums are part of the process. So you need to get ready to hold that energy, that amazingly totally uncontrolled energy that is going to come, because that's part of the process of learning. Again, frustration is part of the process, is part of the learning, and we need to teach by example. Because if you are telling your kid, hey, you kid, don't use the phone, don't use the tablet, and you are like this, obviously there is a big inconsistency in what you are doing and what you are saying. So before trying to apply any rule to the kids, check yourself, check the use you are doing, and check what are they seeing, what are they perceiving about the way you are using it. Because my kids sometimes tell, oh, but you're all the time in the computer. Well, there is a difference between using the computer and consuming content. If you want to do a stop motion movie, go and do it. That's using technology for a purpose, but it's not consuming technology. It's a totally different thing, and they need to understand that too, and we need to understand that too. Because the greatest gift we can give to our kids is the opportunity to fully develop exploring, playing, and connecting with the real world, not with a synthetic digital world. Okay. I'm going to give you a few strategies. The first one is anticipate. So you have to explain the kids the rules in advance. And I strongly recommend that you write it down in a place that they can see that, so as you don't have to argue. Look at this, what is here is Monday, there is no screen. Okay, so there is no screen, that's it, period. I don't have to tell you anything, because remember, when they are in this anxious mode, they are in this tantrum mode, they don't think. So don't try to explain them anything. But do something that they know in advance, that you can use the tablet these days at this time, and that's it. And it has to be very clear. If they're little and they don't read, you can do that with drawings. If they're older, they can read, you have to put it there. Well, I recommend that you put it there, because it's much, much easier. They know that in advance, then you tell them, and then you write them with them, and you put it in a place that everybody can see that. And of course, if your kid has been using screens a lot, and suddenly you are going to reduce that, you have to do things in substitution. You have to help them to find other things that they can do instead of what they were doing. I think that, sorry, the translation, sometimes I read it and it doesn't make any sense, but the idea is this one, is like, if your kid was used to be watching TV the whole time, and it's, I don't know, after under 10, and now you have to offer them something, let's play, let's do this, let's draw, and you have to substitute that. Of course, respecting that being bored is very important for the brain development. Kids need to be bored, especially after 9, when the imagination starts abandoning them and they say, oh, Mom, I'm bored. Congratulations, you are in the beginning of something awesome, because Being bored is like the beginning of the creativity. Okay, so kids need to get bored from time to time. You have to know if this is something that you need to fix. I mean, that you need to give them some options or not. I really believe that kids after 9, they need to get bored and they need to learn to entertain themselves. You don't need to be entertaining them and offering them um, any substitutive fun moment. But if you are doing this strategy of taking the kids out of the screens, you need to put, there is no empty space in the universe, so you need to put something. So you need to start playing games with them or taking them to the park or doing whatever activity to substitute to reduce that use of the screens. And something that is very easy to do and very that works pretty well is creating free zones, screen-free zones. So you can say there are no screens in the bedroom. If you want to use the tablet, you come here to the sitting room or whatever you say. Okay, but try to avoid that there are screens everywhere because then you cannot control anything. So it's like the screens are here in the sitting room, not in the bedroom. And that's it. This is a screen-free place because you're going to sleep better and you're going to be healthier. Okay. We need to promote alternative activities and especially those things that help us to increase the discipline and that feeling of I'm proud of what I'm doing. So many times hobbies, handcrafts, and things like that can give us this feeling, oh, look at what I've done, look at what I've been able to do. For example, I love doing macrame. It's one of my passions. So you see this, you see the result, and you say, wow, I'm proud of myself, of what I've done. So all these things, everything that is about discipline is a word that is not trendy nowadays, but is very necessary if you want to be fully, for me, full human beings. Is promote alternative activities that make them feel proud. Okay. It has to be a mutual support from all the caregivers, is what I was saying about mom and dad have to absolutely agree in how are we going to do this. Because otherwise the kids are going to use that against you. Okay. Very, very important thing. Number 6, you have to control what they are watching. I mean, every time, sorry, I say you have to, those are strategies, those are recommendations. This is what I really believe we should do. Okay, that's why I sometimes talk very strong. We should monitor what they are doing. We should know what content are they watching, how long are they doing that, and I highly recommend that you put a parental control on that. Okay. I really recommend you that it doesn't avoid that they do certain searches. If they do a search, they're going to find things that probably you don't want, but it's going to avoid that they pop up certain ads or certain content that is not appropriate for that. Okay. I use one that is called Custodium and Custodio, and it's the only thing is that some people are a little bit scared of having to allow them because you give full control for that device to the app, and many people don't want that. But it's the safety of your kids. Okay. Use yourself and avoid that your kids use the screen to relieve emotions that they cannot deal with. Okay, if they are upset, never give them the tablet to calm down, never. If they cannot control their emotions, don't give them any screen because then you are making that they cannot do it. Okay, the same with us. Be aware of that and check yourself. If you are upset, if you are sad, if you are anxious, if you are overwhelmed, don't use the screen to calm you down. Find other resources because this is use it or lose it. So if you grow up not being able to control your emotions, you are not going to be able to control that. If you don't develop that before you are a teenager, well, teen in English is until 19, so then you are not going to be able to do that because that's the moment in which you need to learn what are you feeling and how to deal with it. Okay, then you're going to, if you start doing that, if the kids start just using the screens to control their emotions, they're going to be addicted to everything, whatever on any other drug, their whole lives, because they are not going to be able to manage their own inner world. Okay. There are certain apps and games that can be very addictive. Check them. It doesn't matter if they are not considered addictive by whoever does the ranking. If you see your kid getting addicted to something, it doesn't matter if it's the FIFA or it's the Pokemon or it's whatever, Cocomelon, uninstall it because it's the health of your kid. Okay, so don't hesitate, uninstall everything that you think is not working for your kid. And if they ask you, you say, you know what, I'm seeing that you lose control with this, so I'm going to uninstall it, and later we will see if we can install it back. Okay. Another thing, number 9, you know what, I'm going to tell you, some people have been using my presentations about this topic to sell their own protection devices. I said, do you know, Ana Maria was lecturing at the school talking about this, and I have the solution. I have this pendant that you put it there and protects you 24/7. Or I have this little card. Or I have this. You know what? As a scientist, I have to tell you that there are certain things that can, create some effect, minimizing a little bit the radiations. But there are no magic protections, okay? And sometimes I'm against them because they can create this false safety. That's it. Yeah, I know this is bad, but you know what? I have this pendant and I'm protected. No, you also need to be aware of what you are doing. And they can protect you a little bit about radiation. Some of them, most of them don't. A few of them can do something, but they never protect you against the addiction. So this is just not wanting to see the full image of what I'm trying to explain. If you can, and you are still on time, delay as much as you can the first device. For many people, the first device is a tablet. For other people, the first device is a cell phone. If you can avoid, what I could do is letting them use my tablet, that I have much more control on that, or a second tablet that is mine. They can use that on weekends. In my case, I don't let my kids to use technology if it's not a weekend, and during the weekend just for a short period of time before they go to sports. And if you can, every time that they ask you, is that everybody's using the cell phone? I need a cell phone. No, you don't need a cell phone. We all grew up without cell phones and we survived, so you don't need them. Is that everybody has them? Well, that's their choice. It's not mine. And I personally tell my kids, when you're 15, I'll buy you a cell phone. Before, no, because you don't need it. Okay, it all depends on the situation of each family, of course, but as a general, framework, a frame of reference, I tell you, please delay as much as you can this first device, because once they have the device, it's very difficult to control it. Okay. The more you can go to nature, the better. Especially if you are in a process in which you are doing a detox, a digital detox with your kids, you are reducing the use of technology. Compensate as much as you can with nature. Nature is the only thing that gives us the right amount of stimulation for our brain, and is the only thing that can help our brain to come back to normal. Okay. Another strategy, I hear it translated as links. I wanted to mean the bonds, the relationships. The stronger it is your bond with your kids, the easier everything is going to be. That relationship is going to evolve over time, and it's going to come a moment in which it's going to be threatened, apparently, because it's the moment that the kid needs to separate from you and find himself or herself. But the more you can strengthen the bonds with your kids, doing activities with them, talking a lot with them, taking advantage of every moment to just establish a strong bond in the way you consider is healthy, the easier everything is going to be. Because many times when they're babies, oh, they're so cute, and they grow up and they're not so cute, and then they have this 9, 10 years old first big crisis, and it becomes tough, and thank God they go to school and I forget, and then you have the teenagers, and that is very difficult. And sometimes we also oscillate in the relationship with them because we are very exhausted. So first, I didn't put it here, but the first strategy is you need to be not so exhausted, because otherwise the rest is not going to work. Okay, so the more you can strengthen these bonds, this connection, this relationship with your kids, the easier everything is going to be. And the last thing is help them to learn how to choose, right, because this is what makes us adults, is the need to be responsible of your choices. Deal with them. If you made it wrong, you deal with them. If you made it right, you deal with it. This is being adult, being responsible of each one of your choices. So if we want our kids to grow up and being responsible and being good adults, we need to help them to see what are the choices they have that they can choose, like you. What are the choices, and how to choose what is better, what is healthier. Okay. Depending on the age, of course, you can also help them to reflect. I say, how are you seeing your brother after playing this? How are you observing your friends? It's very easy. I remember a conversation where my kids were saying, you know what, Mom, this guy, this neighbor, they gave him a PlayStation, and now he doesn't want to get out and play soccer with us. Okay, what do you observe there, and what can you learn from that? Okay, let's help them to choose wisely. Of course, we first need to apply all that to us as adults, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult that we can transmit that to anyone. Okay, so that was it. I hope that this has been useful for you, that has been insightful. I wish that you can really explain that to other parents, that as a society we can start changing these things that I'm perceiving like a big sickness. Is my wish that this information is useful for you. And if you like my content, I encourage you to give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and share this information with other people that you think it can be useful. I'm very actively working in this topic. I'm going everywhere I'm invited, especially physically around me. I'm going to all the schools in the area I live, talking to all the directors and giving this information in a way that I hope is understandable. And I'm also open to explain that online at every moment, every place that I'm required. So if you think this information can be useful, share this video. If you need something more personal, just contact me, because I will be more than glad to help people to start growing up our kids in a healthier way. So I hope you have an awesome day, and see you soon.